Hi, and welcome back to the channel. So today's topic is about the government's plan for going full EV by 2030. So what's the topic? Okay, so in 2020, the government announced a pretty substantial, bold plan for the UK to go full EV by 2030. So all cars to be sold after 2030 have to be full EV. Otherwise, the manufacturers will get penalised and fined for everyone below their target that they sell out petrol and diesel. The Tories then decided to move that to 2035 to give them a little bit more time. Part of that was because of COVID and all the supply chain issues and, people not being able to get it into the factories and, the whole knock-on effect is part of the reason why they pushed it to 2035. There is also the potential that they thought, actually, this is not going to be achievable. So they decided to give them a little bit more time to hit that target. Fast forward 2025 as we are now, but the end of 2024, when Labour got into power, Labour have now said we're going to revise that and we're going to bring it back to 2030, which kind of leaves the manufacturers caught off guard a little bit. They've not had an easy route to try and plan their vehicles and what they're going to build, where they're going to build them, for when, because of these changes by the government, 2030, 2035, back to 2030. So the government has said that they are going to have a consultation with the manufacturers to decide how they can hit this target. Now, I can't see the government backing down on the 2030 target. They don't seem to be a government that will back down on anything, as we've seen already since they've come into power.
On the 28 billion, we are doubling down. We're not backing off.
With the heating allowance and so on. I don't think they're going to back down on this. What they may do is tweak it a little bit, tweak the numbers, massage it a little bit, make it a little bit more easy for them to hit the targets, but not lose face. So, a couple of things that I think they need to look at in regards to this consultation. First thing is they need to look at the infrastructure of the UK. We've got about 70,000 public chargers in the UK at the moment, and there are about 7,000-ish forecourts for petrol and diesel. So EV chargers vastly outnumber the forecourts. The problem with that is that a lot of people don't know where they are. They don't see them. You go past a forecourt, there's a great big forecourt, it says BP, Shell, Esso, whatever the garage is, and it looks like a garage. They've pumps there, you can see them. It's a garage. We know what they are. We tend to know where they are as well, especially if we've lived in the same area for a period of time. With EV chargers, they're normally small stands with a cable on, or maybe not even a cable, just a plug for you to plug your own cable in. And they tend to be hidden a little bit more, so people don't know where they are. And a lot of people don't realize that there are apps on your phone that will tell you where they are. Places like Tesco's and Morrison's and Lidl's, Aldi's, hotels like Holiday Inns and the Hiltons and places like that. These are all over the UK. A lot of these places now are having EV chargers fitted so that residents or people staying over or people doing their shopping can go and charge. So I think there's a little bit of learning there, and I think the public needs a little bit of education about these chargers as well. But linked to that, the government really needs to look and tackle the cost. The cost of charging per kilowatt on public chargers is nothing but ridiculous in the UK. 79.85p a kilowatt is the standard. There are some that might be a little bit cheaper. If you're lucky enough to be a Tesla driver, you might get much lower rates down to 35, 40p a kilowatt. But for the majority of us that use public chargers, we're looking at 75 to 85p a kilowatt, which is just daylight robbery. The government needs to clamp down on that. If they want people to buy EV cars and they want people to use them, then they need to do something about the charging costs, because it's not sustainable at what it is at the moment. It is just ridiculous. Now, I'm lucky enough that I've got home off-road parking, so I've got a charger. I can charge up 6, 7p a kilowatt at night. Sometimes free, depending on the tariff and what offers they have on, but it's less than 10p a kilowatt. Public chargers, at least, most of them, at least 70, 75p a kilowatt. That is putting people off buying a car, an EV car, the running cost of it. I've done a video on the channel, go and have a look, and I go through different scenarios, comparing a petrol car with an EV at different distances, to give you a breakdown of how much it will cost you if you had either vehicle for different types of units. So I'm going to have a look at that. I will link that at the end of this video as well, because it's a good one to go and watch and understand the costs. So on top of the cost for the charging, you've got the initial outlay of the vehicle as well. And petrol cars are much cheaper than EV cars to buy. Leasing mine at the moment, my EV is leased, so it's all covered for in like insurance and road tax, license tax, which is coming in, which is another charge we've been hit with this year, which is another thing the government needs to look at, is why are EV cars now having to pay vehicle license tax when we haven't before, because we're not polluting the environment directly. So when we're driving down the road, we are not directly polluting those areas. We're not sitting in congestion, in traffic jams, pumping out fumes out the back of the exhaust, which is giving people asthma and COPD, lung diseases, lead poisoning, all these different conditions that people may get from polluted areas.
Atlanta is well known for bad traffic. Now new data is showing that children are impacted the most by traffic pollution. Researchers at George Washington University link traffic pollution to 4 million new cases of childhood asthma worldwide each year.
You only have to look at some of the other countries in the world where there are heavy amounts of vehicles in built-up areas, and the life expectancy of those people in those countries is far lower than what we've got at the moment, but we could be a lot better. So I'm not sitting in traffic polluting the local environment. I haven't got a noisy exhaust on the car, so I'm not waking people up at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm racing around the road. So why do we pay that license? So the government needs to look at that. There needs to be an incentive. If they want people to go out and buy EV cars, then they need to have an incentive. So that incentive could be removing that vehicle tax, lowering the cost of public charging, maybe having some kind of subsidy like they did with the scrappage scheme in 2008. They need some kind of scheme like that to try and entice people to commit and buy a car, but also to give the manufacturers a little bit of help in selling them as well. Because if the manufacturers are left alone to sell them, they're going to really struggle, because the demand for new purchases is not there. Leases make up the majority of the sales in the UK, but not everybody wants a lease. So the government needs to do something. The industry is pushing back on this as well. They're saying that they can't meet the demand. They can't retool, reskill, upgrade factories quickly enough in order to meet these deadlines. So again, the government needs to look at that and decide what can they do to try and help them get to that. Do they throw money at them so they can upgrade their factories quicker, retrain people to build EVs, or do they just leave them to it and see what happens? This may be a shake-up. We've had certain manufacturers of cars dominate the car manufacturer for decades, hundreds of years, 100 years or so, some of them, but they've dominated it. Maybe now this is a shake-up. And some of the newer companies coming through, such as Tesla, BYD, MG, maybe these companies that are pushing the boundaries of EV cars, maybe these are the ones that are actually going to become the bigger manufacturers in the new world. And some of the older ones that are lagging, Ford, Vauxhall, Citroen, maybe these ones are the ones that are actually going to fall to the wayside and may get absorbed into these other companies at some point. So it might actually be a good thing for the market to have this shake-up, rather than manufacturers being in control all the time. Now they're having to report to government, and they are going to get fined if they don't sell vehicles. So there needs to be support for people's jobs, but I think the manufacturers need to take a bit of ownership as well. Now, one of the other topics is, where does plug-in hybrids fit into all this? So in case you don't know, a plug-in hybrid is a petrol vehicle that has a battery as well. Short range batteries, 40, 50, 60 miles normally. And the car would change between petrol and battery as and when it sees fit while you're driving. So it adds range. It can reduce CO2 levels in cities if you're using the battery part, but the car kind of decides when and where to use it. What I have found from research and speaking to people who I work with that and friends that have got hybrids is most of them actually don't use the battery part. They don't need to. They'll just use the fuel tank and use it as a petrol car. So they've got an EV battery in there, but the range is small. It takes quite a while to charge it. They're not as fast as charging as normal EVs are. So why do we need them? What's the purpose of them? Is that just diverting the manufacturer's attention away from full EVs so they can focus on hybrids? Why buy a hybrid when you can either have a petrol car or you can have a full EV? I really don't see the market. I don't understand where the market is for those that want a hybrid, except where they want to claim that they're helping the environment because they got a hybrid, and any other tax benefits that might come with that through work, salaries, and so on. But they're not using the EV part. So let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of the hybrids. We don't need them. Petrol through to EV. We don't need the middle bit. We really don't. So it's interesting at the moment in the UK to see what's going on. I hope the government actually takes a real good look at what is happening, how it's affected us, how it's affecting sales, how it could affect jobs if people lose them because, manufacturers are being fined £15,000 for every vehicle that doesn't meet their criteria, their sales target. And then so much for them to cover infrastructure, running costs, and the removal of EVs and hybrids to go full EV via the manufacturers. There's a lot for them to work through. So I hope they actually have a proper, sensible look at this, maybe eat a little bit of humble pie if they're wrong, and actually work with the manufacturers rather than dictating to them, because that will just end up in more job losses, will hit the economy bigger time. If we've got people out of work, we've got people who are getting benefits, we've got less money coming in to help the NHS because people are not being taxed because they're not working, and we've got other countries around the world that will overtake us, and our skills labor, our skilled workforce that are there to manufacture will disappear out of the UK. So I hope that the government has a real good, sensible look at this and works with the manufacturers. Okay, so check out my last video on the cost of running an EV, and leave a comment below if there's a topic that you would like me to cover about EV cars, and also where do you think the government, or what the government should be doing in order to try and entice people to go EV. Where do you think they should be looking, oh, what do you think they could try and introduce to help us go from petrol to EV? Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the future videos that I release. Until then, thank you very much.